Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast on VMware vSphere Web Client plugin. We have Mr. Jayant Ahirrao with us. He is currently working with Calsoft in the capacity of technology lead. Jayant has worked on multiple vSphere Web Client plugin projects at Calsoft and he will be discussing more about vCP. So welcome Jayant.
Thanks, Ron.
So Jayant, without spending much time, let's get started with discussion. What is vSphere Web Client plugin?
vSphere Web Client plugin is an extension that gets added to the vSphere Web Client, which allows the customers to perform operations on the vCenter server and the storage array through an isolated interfaces. So here, through plugin, we will be executing the REST APIs or the CLIs from the storage, and as well as there are certain APIs provided by the VMwares, which could be the REST or which could be the SDKs. So we will be executing those things in a plugin to achieve the certain features. So here we will be having two parts like a UI and the backend. So UI will be designed in the Flex or it could be designed in the HTML, and backend could be designed in any programming language.
Okay, what is the need of vCP?
So as I just mentioned you that there are two components. One is a vCenter server and another is the storage array. So let's consider that we don't have a plugin developed in our environment. So in that case, user should have the knowledge about the storage array as well as he should have the knowledge about the vCenter server so that he can perform operations on the storage array and then I can perform operations on the vCenter servers.
Okay. So do you think that storage provisioning could be one of the scenario where our plugin is needed?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is the main highlighted feature of our plugin. So let's consider the two things. The one is the without plugin and with plugin. Okay, so without plugin, user needs to create a volume, do the volume mapping with the ESXi host. Then he can create a pool, and these operations are to be done on the storage side. Then he has to go back to the ESXi host where he can performing the dynamic discovery or the static discovery. Once that is done, then the volume or the LUN will be visible that we have created on the storage array earlier. So once that LUN is visible, on the top of that we will be creating the data store or we will be doing a storage provisioning. So this is the without plugin. If we have the plugin, then plugin will be providing a one wizard or one UI to the user where user needs to give the name of the data store, size of the data store, and few information which storage requires. Once this information is filled and he has submitted that UI or that screen, then the steps which I have just mentioned earlier without the plugin, all steps will be done by our plugin. So like creating the volume, creating the dynamic discovery, static discovery, creating the data store, everything will be done from the plugin. So there is no need for user to understand what's happening from the storage side or what's happening from the vCenter side.
Okay, so storage provisioning is the only example, or do you have any other examples in mind as well?
Certainly, there are other examples as well, like volume snapshots, storage events, and alarms. So I will explain you each in a brief. As we know that the vCenter servers provide a snapshots for the virtual machine, but they don't have a snapshots for the data store. But certain times we have to take the backup of data store as well. So here we can use the feature from the storage side like a volume snapshots. Using that feature, we can achieve the data store snapshot because data store is created on the top of the volume. The another thing that I mentioned is about the events and alarms. vSphere Web Client allows us to create our custom events or the custom alarms inside their environment so that user can understand what's happening from the storage side.
Okay.
So he can easily identify, okay, something has alarmed or something has some events are generated. So he can go back to the storage server and he can check and take the appropriate actions there.
So this brings me to my next question, like what is the process to develop the plugin?
To develop the plugin, there are certain guidelines given by the VMware. So they have their SDKs. So using those SDKs, we can create a very basic structure. So once that basic structure is developed, we can write down our own code. So there are mainly two things are present in this project. The one is the UI side and one is the backend side. The UI will be mainly developed in HTML, CSS, Angular, which will be the representation of our plugin. And from the backend side, you can use any programming language like a Java, basically, which will be having the code to execute the CLIs, REST APIs from the storage side and as well as APIs from the vCenter server side.
Okay, so what are the different challenges from a QA perspective?
So it's a very vast topic from the QA side. So I will just try to describe you few challenges. The first one is different versions of the vCenter server. As we know that in the market, there are different versions, 5.5, 6.0, 6.5, 6.7. For testing the plugin on all these various versions, it is a very challenging job for the QA on which version that we need to support and how it will behave on different versions. Now there are again versions of the browsers as well, because the vSphere web clients provides the supports or have the supports for the Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, and Internet Explorer. So again, we have to test our plugin on all these browsers. So this is a challenge for the QA to test the entire plugin.
Could you please put some light on the vSphere web client plugin certification?
The web client certification is the program defined by the VMware so that we can certify our project or our plugin using the guidelines that our product is correctly developed or not, or it is as per the user experience or not, and we can certify that from the VMware. So for certification perspective, user should have the membership of the TAP Technology Alliance Partner, and they should be registered under the SDDC program. After that, we can execute few manual test cases defined by the VMware, and if their results are met, the VMware will certify our project.
Okay, so could you please list down some of the advantages of these certifications?
Basically, certifying the plugin or certified plugin ensures that we have adopted the best practices of the VMware provided, and it also gives the feel to the user that okay, it's a VMware ready project. So user can easily go and they can perform certain operations on that plugin.
Okay. Since HTML5 has been used in various
Correct.
cases, and earlier the plugin UI was developed in Flex, so is there any provision that it is now getting transferred into HTML also?
Correct. So as we know that VMware is not giving the support, or it is going to deprecate the support for the Flex from 6.7 onwards. So till the 5.0, we were developing our entire plugin in a Flex UI. Then from 5.5 onwards, VMware has giving us support for HTML to develop the third-party plugins. So from 5.5, though they do have the client written in entirely Flex till the 6.0, okay, but from 6.5 onwards, they do have two different clients. The one is entirely for Flex and another is for HTML. So there are certain things that we need to consider when we are supporting to the 6.0 and 6.5, or we are supporting our plugin for the Flex and HTML. We need to consider few approaches from the development perspective, and as well as there are few things that we need to consider from the QA side.
Sure. Thanks, Jayant. Thanks for the wonderful discussion. To our audience, if you have any queries related to this topic, please log on to www.calsoftinc.com, and we'll be coming up with more topics related to vCP in our upcoming podcast. So stay tuned and thanks a lot. Thanks, Jayant.
Thanks, Ron.